Hi students, I wanted to do a breakdown of the first quiz of the story of an hour in Desiree's Baby. So all of the grades are posted um, for for the quiz, and I wanted to go over the questions step by step so that you can be really clear on the correct answers and what I'm looking for. And before we go into this, for each question, just kind of know this is your rookie quiz for this class. So if it went well, you are doing exactly what you should do. Your strategy is working for you, and you should keep doing that. If it didn't go as well as you had hoped, just know this is the first quiz. This is just your rookie quiz, and it can go up from here. And the other thing to know is that you can have one quiz not go well, or even if you missed one quiz, and you can make up for that quiz that either didn't go well or you missed it by getting the extra credit on the subsequent quizzes, and that will make up for one missing or gone awry quiz, and in fact it can actually even give you an A on that missing quiz. So just know that you can still move forward from here and do very well. All right, so let's go through the questions. Number one, what does the open window symbolize in the story of an hour? Freedom, basically freedom, right? Open windows generally symbolize freedom. Uh, Also, I took window of opportunity, possibility, etc. Something in that regard. And so for full points, you needed to answer the question correctly, and then you needed to support your answer with evidence from the text. So the evidence is either a quote from the text that supports that idea of freedom, or your description, your very specific example from the text. For example, a quote, free, free, body and soul free. Or when she looks out the window and she's describing the new spring life, and many of you are describing what she saw out the window, etc. Specific details from the quiz, or an example from the quiz. Okay, what am I saying? I'm sorry. Specific examples from the story, or specific details from the story. So yes, you need to commit some kind of description or quotes, from memory, because this is closed book, and I'll talk more about that. The other issue is that, of course, as always, the quizzes are always on the stories themselves, not the film. Like I said in the original welcome video and in the quiz review video, you are always being quizzed on the story, not the film. If I have a film, I like to show it because I think it gives you a visual for the story. Sometimes it gives you kind of a enhanced understanding, especially with some of the language from the 1800s. I think it can be nice to have a visual, but sometimes the director will take some creative license, as directors do. I mean, any book and movie are going to have some of those differences, but you are being quizzed on the story, right? So there is nothing that says in the story that she could not leave the house. So you know that. You've read the story, right? So don't give me the evidence from the movie. Give me the evidence from the story. Nothing about traveling in the story, right? So you shouldn't be talking about that for the quiz, because that's only for happening in the movie, right? Okay, all right, so let's move on to number two. What does Kate Chopin, the author, right? What does Kate Chopin, I'm sorry, I should say why. Why does Kate Chopin have Mrs. Mallard frequently referring to freedom in the story of the hour? So this is not the same question as question one. Why does the author have this focus? What works just as well? It really doesn't make any sense. Like, what does she have as that focus? So why does she have that focus, though? So this is not the same question. Why would the author have the focus of freedom? So you should not be answering this question in the same way or similar way, really, as question one. So as I went over in the quiz review video, it's why does the author have this focus? Well, you could explain it in a number of ways, but normally because of the status of women's rights when she wrote this story and her concern about that. Women did not have the right to vote when she wrote this story nationally. Some states they did, Wyoming being the first off the top of my head, and I think followed by Idaho and Colorado. You can look that up, but the kind of the pioneer women, they weren't going to stand for this no voting thing, I guess. But at any rate, nationally, it did not happen until 1920. So that was, she's very concerned about that. She was really concerned about the state of marriage in the time. She herself had had a very happy marriage where her husband was very supportive of her, but that was not always everyone's situation, right? And so often she saw women putting aside their dreams to support their spouse, but without getting to pursue their own. Now, this was not the law or anything like that. Certainly, women could not vote. By law, they could not vote, except in some states at this time, and women did not normally have the right to own property unless their husbands had like died and left it to them, or father had died and left it to them, or something like that, but not normally. So there were things like that that were legal situations. But this was not that, women always had to be told what to do by men. No, it's not like it was the law. I mean, no, of course not. I mean, it's complex, so your answer should reflect the complexity of the situation. But still, things were not what they were today, and she wanted them to get better. And so she was really concerned about the status of women's rights at that time. So when she's constantly having her character focus on freedom, there's a reason for that. She was interested in more freedom and more rights for women. So I had said in the quiz review video I would accept facts that I gave in the video, such as the women's lack of right to vote, women's lack of right to own property, and things like that, right? But you can also quote from the story as well, as long as that supports your answer. You could also, I don't think anyone did this that I recall, but you could also talk about the author's focus as far as plot development. If you would like to talk about this emphasis on freedom regarding plot development, as a writer for the story, and talk about the aspects of the plot with some specific details to support that driving, because it is rather ironic, the whole situation of wanting freedom, right? And nothing to do with the story, and nothing to do with not being able to leave the house, but just having a desire for more of her own dreams and that sort of thing. And in the end, it's when she comes to accept, she doesn't wish for his death. She's not happy that he died, but she accepts it and then finds new opportunity in it. And then ironically, it's all ripped away from her. And it was the joy that kills wasn't really, it was likely not joy, right? That her dreams were ripped away from her at the last minute again, right? So you could talk about plot development. That's something, but some focus on why the author would want her character to do that. Okay, all right, enough said. Number 3, what became of Desiree and Desiree's baby? What happened to her? So you need to answer the question like really in a straightforward way about what happened to her, right? So I said in the quiz review that there were 2 possible answers. There's really only one traditional reading of the story that there's evidence for, but I said because it was depressing and there's some possibility with evidence of a second outcome, I said that was okay. So basically she died, right? She killed herself and her child. So evidence. She said, I cannot be so unhappy and live. She was rejected by her spouse. And so she sets off in what is basically a nightgown, not traveling clothes, as the book says, and slippers. She went on a road that was not one that was traveled by, right? And it says she went into the reeds and the willows, and she was not seen again. And so she takes her child before she goes. So this is particularly depressing. But as I said in the quiz review video, remember, with what as devastated as she was, and as devastated as people are today still, to be heartbroken and rejected by what she thought was the love of her life, and also though put in 1850s in the South, and what her husband was accusing her of and what he was accusing their son of, and know that there was really no place for her in society. She did not know what would happen to her child. She did not know, could he be enslaved? What would happen to her? She had no opportunity for a career. She had no higher education. Yes, she could go home to her family. Her mother said to come home and bring your child, but that was a very structured society, and that she would bring intense shame on the family. When I first read the story, I wanted her to go north, young woman, go north. There was slavery existed in the South, not the North, but some people might have been able to do that, but it's difficult. It's hard to blaze a trail. Not everyone is ready to be a trailblazer. and she was totally devastated and heartbroken. And so, at any rate, we see the similar issue in Toni Morrison's Beloved, when she is facing having to go back to slavery, the character in this situation, and knows that her child will be enslaved, and that there's going to be likely vindictiveness because because they tried to escape, and she kills her baby rather than to subject him to being enslaved once again. And so these are the tragedies of racism from in the 1850s. And so it is very tragic, and I think Kate Chopin was trying to point out this tragedy. All right, so that's really the traditional reading of the story. But for those of you who are like, well, that sure is depressing, isn't there another option? Yes, there is. Some possibility, because Madame Valmont, her mother, does say, come home and bring your child. And so that would be the evidence that she went home to her mother. And I do have to hand it to Madame Valmont for saying that, because that was not in keeping with the times either. So her love for her daughter and her grandchild really went above and beyond the times in that regard. So you certainly could make that argument, but you need to make a decision about what happened to her. Did she die? Did she kill herself and her child? Did she go home to her mother? Those are the only two possibilities. Okay, so number 4. Give 2 examples that foreshadow the surprise ending in Desiree's Baby. Well, first of all, in order to know what the foreshadowing is to the surprise ending, i.e. the clues to the surprise ending, you'd have to know what the surprise ending is. So the surprise ending is that Armand is of African heritage. So he's going through the letters, right, from Desiree after she's now gone. His life has come to this tragic outcome. He's going through the letters, and in the letters along with these letters, there's also a letter from his mother to his father saying that at least Armand will never know that he is cursed with the race that is, he is cursed to be of the race that is cursed with slavery, something to that effect, right? So that he is the one, not Desiree, likely, who is of African heritage. And so that's the huge surprise. And the first time I read it, I went, wow, I didn't see that one coming, right? So you may have seen it coming, you may not have, but that's the surprise. You need to be clear on number 1, that's the surprise. But it's not the clue, it's the surprise. What are the surprises? There are clues throughout the story, and sometimes it takes a second read. It took me a second read once I saw the ending. But some clues are when he's initially described in the story as having a dark, handsome face. That's a clue. When they have that bizarre argument, when Desiree says to Armand, are you saying I'm not white? And she says, look at my hand, it's whiter than yours. And that's a clue, right? So that's when and it seems really bizarre to our thinking today in the 21st century. Thank God it seems bizarre to us that they're having this bizarre argument over skin color, but it was not bizarre in the 1850s in that area of the country, right? So there's that. And then Paris. Paris is the other clue. Paris, France. I took either Paris or France because the mother, his parents had lived in France, and he lived there up until his mother died. She died in France. Then they came back, right? And so Paris and France both were known for being very tolerant for, even at that time, for interracial marriage and relationships. So that they could have gone there and been married and it would have been fine, right? And so that's a clue, right? So that is a clue. So the big question is, and this is not on the quiz, but the big question is, did Armand know or not, right? And so there's an argument to be made either way. So yes, maybe he knew, because Desiree would be like the perfect foil, right? And because she didn't know her heritage really. But on the other hand, you could argue that he really did not know at all, right? And that he only found out when he found that letter. So that's really up in the air. But those are the 4 regular questions. Then there's a bonus question. In what way does either of these stories resonate with you personally? Please explain specifically how you connect with the story and give a specific example from the story and from your own experience or observation. So there are many ways that students said that they connected, and you just needed to give all the parts, right? So you needed to explain how you connected with the story, the point of connection for you and for the story, and then give a specific example from both. So you know about giving the specific details or examples from the book, and then you add your own little story about that the connection. If it's like from your own personal experience, fine, but it could be from observation, meaning it could be that you observe someone in your family or a friend or something go through this, or even something that you saw like on the news or something, because these issues are still relevant. So, um, if you said that you couldn't relate to the story, I that's kind of unfortunate to not try, because you could get points. I want to give you points, right? So if you weren't thinking that way, I tried to help for just kind of the future, just to kind of get your mind going in that direction on maybe a deeper level. Is I kind of put down some ideas that someone could maybe connect with the story, perhaps kind of universal human themes that come up in the story, such as racism, such as sexism, such as adoption, issues with adoption, such as grief, such as being heartbroken, relationship problems, family drama, family problems, lack of communication. In both stories, there was a lack of communication that caused all kinds of problems, right? That still happens today, right? So any of this, right, could be freedom, right? So we all, in some degree or another, generally connect with a desire for freedom in some way in our lives, right? So certainly that there are many more, but those are just some that you could talk about, right, and give an example from the story and an example from your own experience or observation. All right, and I do give, as you've seen, partial credit. So it's always good to try, right? Because then you could get some points, and it really helps with the bonus to make an attempt at it, because that way, if another question didn't go well, then you could get some points to help out from the bonus. All right, so the other thing I wanted to talk about is, as I said before, right, that the quiz is, of course, because it's a quiz, right, closed book. So I'm not using the lockdown browser right now. I would consider it for the future if it became a major problem, but right now it's the honor system that you need to not look at any other websites or the book or anything while you're doing the quiz. So you're supposed to study and take the quiz, right? So if there are instances of plagiarism, meaning you looked something up from a website about the story, then that equals a 0. So and if you did it for one question, it's still a 0 for the entire quiz. If you did it for every question, it's a 0 for the entire quiz. So plagiarism is a really serious issue. You're saying that these are my words, but they're actually someone else's. So that's considered to be intellectual theft. So it's a 0 on the quiz. But if it happened after this, it would actually be a 0 on the quiz, plus a potential interview with a dean at Solano College, who gets to decide based on the interview if you're staying at Solano College or not. It's that serious. So just kind of know that, if that happened to be your situation, just move forward. I'm not doing the interview with this one, but there would be a 0, right? So, and then just know that happened. I said that happened, right? And so just know that, just make a different choice next time, but that is a very serious issue that you don't want to do, because it doesn't help anything, or doesn't help matters. All right, so moving forward, so some study tips I just wanted to go over really quick to help you to be successful in the quiz, because I want you to be able to be very successful, is to make sure that you are reading the story. So even if there's a movie, make sure you read the story. I've been an overwhelmed college student, right? So I can understand how hectic things get, and often trying to juggle work, and I did all that as well, and I really understand how difficult that can be, particularly during this time. But you've got to read the story to be successful in it. So you want to, number one, read the story. What I would suggest is read the story through once, just to get a sense of it, get used to the language if that's needed, if it's, one that's a little challenging, and get a sense of the plot, that sort of thing. Then number two, read it through again and take notes. So that, I think, can kind of really help you to understand more specifically what's going on with each of the characters. I had a student it was a different class in a different book, but the first quiz did not go well for her. In fact, she failed the first quiz. but she regrouped, and in her regrouping, she had done the reading before, but in her regrouping, what she did was she did the reading, and then she did take notes. And what she did was she took notes on each of the characters in each section. And so, sorry, my cat is wanting to get involved in this. That's Melissa. All right, so she took notes on each of the characters and what they were doing in each part, and that helped her to be aware of the characters and keep them straight, what was going on with each of the characters, and that also helped her to understand what was going on with the plot. So it worked really well for her because she got an A on every quiz after that. So that was a good suggestion that seemed to work for her. I had another student tell me they used to, they would get the stories on tape somehow, and they would run, and you know, audio, you can look up how to get it on that format. I don't know how to do that, but he looked it up, and he would go running and listen to the words being read to him, and that seemed to cement it into his you know, thought process better. And so, you know, there's that. I would also definitely use the study guide. The questions do come straight from the study guide. So what I would do is I would practice. I try to post one of these. Well, I do post one of these videos a week before the quiz thereabouts. So as far as a quiz review, is just to kind of review it. So just kind of look for that and go through the study guide yourself and try to look for the answer, and then plan out what your evidence is going to be, right? So kind of plan that out so that way you're thinking about it. I would even try writing it down, have someone quiz you. So know that the 4 questions will always be right from the study guide. The bonus question may be from the study guide, or it may be something about how you connect with the story. It may be something specific about the author, or something more specific, you know, from the story, because it's bonus, right? So that's where you want to carefully read. All right, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. I just wanted to go over really what the breakdown was, so you really understand what the correct answer is, what I'm looking for, and just kind of know that you can do very well. And if you did very well, you should just keep doing exactly what you're doing and do the same strategy because it's working well. But if it isn't, all is not lost. This is only, you know, the beginning. So don't worry, you can still make up for that in the regard of just moving forward with the next one, getting the extra credit, and that will make up for that. So just keep moving forward, and all right, and onward we go. Thank you.